Part 15. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 141. Headquarters of the Navy. An emergency meeting was reconvened. That's how it happened. The Whitebeard pirates were all suppressed by Arthur alone, but the expected battle did not come, but was invited. After listening to the content of the Yellow Apes report, everyone looked at each other a little. Whitebeard pirates, are they going to unite with the Arthur pirates? This is also the one thing that everyone is most worried about. With the current strength of the Arthur pirates, their navy will naturally not be easily provoked. But this does not mean that they are willing to see the strength of the Arthur pirates grow. According to the latest information, the Whitebeard pirates left the island unharmed and did not notice anything unusual. One by one, the reports made the Steel Bones frown slightly. Arrange for people to keep a close watch on the island, and report any news immediately. Yes. After the Steel Skeleton gave the order, someone immediately went to arrange it. Arthur's pirates, you must not make any of it. Steel Bones sighed as he spoke, full of helplessness. Sometimes I have thought more than once that if we can get the Arthur pirates to establish a good relationship with their navy, that's really a complete peace of mind. But Steelbone also understands how unrealistic such an idea is. Wait a minute. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in my mind. Your Majesty, the Seven Martial Seas, this is a great opportunity. As for letting Arthur join the Seven Martial Seas of His Majesty, this kind of thing will not be extravagant, but as long as someone related joins. The inspiration that flashed through his mind grew bigger and bigger, and the eyes of the Steel Bones gradually brightened. And at the same time, on Arthur's island. In the space of almost a month, everything on the island is on track. Arthur felt that he no longer had the need to preside over the big things on the island. In the living room of the private manor, Arthur turned off the system interface in front of him. There are still 3 character fragments left to allow Seal to be promoted to SSS rank. I'm afraid it only needs 1 supply to suffice, and it won't take long. After checking the situation on the island, Arthur stood up and spoke softly to everyone in the living room. How about we go to sea again? In the middle of the huge living room, Rita and the others were all dressed in dance dresses and practicing their dances. I don't know when they came to such an interest. As Arthur's words fell, everyone's movements came to an abrupt halt. Kiana paused for a moment in a standalone posture of the golden rooster, and then staggered back to her feet. Captain, did you just say we're leaving this island? Kiana blinked, reconfirmed. Yes. Arthur nodded and continued. If you don't want to. No, we're too willing, Captain. Kiana immediately jumped up and hugged Arthur fiercely. During this time, they were indeed a little tired of staying on the island. Otherwise, how could Kiana obediently practice dancing there? No matter where the captain goes, Seal will be with him. Seal walked briskly to Arthur's side, her blue eyes as clear as the sea. It complements the blue dress on her body, and it is beautiful. Well, I know, come and give it a hug. Arthur gently hugged Seal's petite body. After this period of time, 11ER also slowly recovered from her shyness at the beginning. Although I don't dare to share a bed with everyone, it doesn't hurt to be a little intimate in front of people. At most, the white cheeks become red. Captain, do you have a purpose this time? Rita asked softly. Planning ahead has always been her way of doing things. If nothing else, I'd like to go to the sky and see it. Arthur looked up and smiled as he spoke. Although the island now creates hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth for him every day, who would be afraid of more money? Especially hard currency like gold. Wouldn't it be more wonderful to make a palace out of gold with a little corruption? Heavenly. Mei looked up a little puzzled. I was a little confused, but I didn't ask anything. As long as you follow in the captain's footsteps, there must be no problem. Brnya, before we leave, you and AI-chan will check all the systems of the entire island so that nothing happens when we leave. Okay Captain, Brnya will start checking it at once. Brnya said as she grabbed her collar and waved it upward, throwing away some cumbersome dresses on her body and starting to connect with AI-chan. You wait here for me for a while, and I'll go to the island to say hello to the others. Since you are leaving the island, you naturally have to inform Doflamingo and Hawkeye. What? You're leaving? When the two were called together and told him what he was trying to do, Doflamingo suddenly rose from his seat. What's wrong? Now that everything on the island is on track, even if I leave, it is very reassuring to have you watching me. After this time of getting along, Arthur still trusts Doflamingo Arthur very much. But if you leave? Doflamingo's brow furrowed, as if there was something unspeakable. Anything to say, so babbling, doesn't look like your character at all. Arthur was a little surprised by Doflamingo's expression. Actually, I've gotten some gossip, but it's not too accurate, so I didn't tell you. Doflamingo exhaled softly, his tone calming back, and continued softly. The island's trade exports are increasing and are already a serious threat to the interests of other places. And there are rumors that the world government seems to have made some moves. You are in charge, and there is no need to be afraid of anything and everything, but if you leave. Doflamingo's meaning is already obvious. If someone took advantage of Arthur's departure from the island to make a small move, he was afraid that he would not be able to handle it. There is no wind and no waves, since there is news, I am afraid there are some movements. A smile slowly curled into Arthur's mouth. Doflamingo, what I valued was your ambition. During my time away from the island, I didn't have to worry about doing things. If someone really wants to do something, I can't ask for it. Hearing this, Arthur's determination to leave would not change, and Doflamingo could only nod. My hawk, I know what you've been doing on this island. Arthur's gaze turned to the side of Hawkeye. Of course, you deserve praise for your determination to overcome me, but the road has to be taken step by step. Defeat the few people who have become famous on the sea, and then challenge me. I'll be waiting for you all the time. Arthur patted Hawkeye on the shoulder as he spoke, and turned to leave. Back inside the manor, everyone was ready. Let's go. Hyperion turned into a streamer and rushed into the sky. Target, Empty Island. The first 2 chapters on gravity have been revised. Wipe sweat. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 142. What did you say? The Arthur pirates left the island. Listening to the report in the phone bug, Steelbone's brow furrowed tightly. He had expected Arthur to stay on the island all the time, but he didn't expect to leave so soon. Where have you been now? Marshal Kong, I should go to heaven. With some uncertainty in his tone, he continued. In addition to this, Hawkeye my hawk also left the island by boat. What Arthur said made my hawk agree. The road is taken step by step, and the mountains are climbed one after the other. I also want to continue to travel to the sea and hone myself. To heaven. As for my hawk's whereabouts, Cyborg didn't care. Okay, I see, continue to lurk in the island, and don't let go of any trouble. Cyborg pondered for a moment and nodded. Well, Marshal Kong, we're a little strapped for money here. The voice coming from the phone bug became a little cautious. Millions of Bailey's expenses every month, you tell me that the budget is a little tight. Speaking of funds, Steele's tone instantly became serious. Where do you need such an overhead for a regular latent mission? The cost is already very large, and it is not enough. On this island, we've had a bare minimum, but monthly accommodation alone costs more than half. In order to be able to get the first news, they can't leave the island either. In this way, millions of expenses are naturally not enough. I'll give you an additional 500,000 to save some flowers. For these, the steel bones naturally understood, but the words he said seemed to be squeezed out of his teeth. Yes, thank you Marshal Sarah. Hung up the phone bug and sighed a little tiredly. Go to heaven. If you go to heaven, then it doesn't matter what happens to our navy. There was a feeling of relief in his mouth. At the same time, in the high altitude, Hyperion flew slowly forward. Ai-chan, still haven't you found a similar island? Arthur did not know the location of the Sky Island, but believed that Huberion's search ability would soon find it. I'm trying to find it, but I'm afraid it's not something that can be found in a short period of time. Love clothes are also very direct. In the middle of nowhere, looking for an island is like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's okay, look for it slowly, it's still a good feeling to fly in the sky. Turn on Panorama Virtual. Everything around them gradually became transparent, making it seem as if Arthur and the others were walking in the air. The main thing is that you can only see the outside from the inside, and you can't see the inside from the outside. Why don't you have a little more wind howling? AI said, slowly feeling a breeze coming towards her. Can it be done like this? Arthur had a hint of surprise in his tone. Of course, AI-chan can do anything. There was a smug look in AI's tone. Yes, yes, the all-powerful AI-chan can't even find an island right now. Humph, I'll find it for you right away. AI is no longer talking, and it looks like she really has to start using all her strength. The scenery in the sky is so beautiful, and the clouds are shrouded in mist. Do you think that cloud looks like a whole sheep? Kiana looked at the white clouds in the sky and suddenly pointed to one of them excitedly. Looks like tonight's dinner has been confirmed. A smile tugged at the corner of Rita's mouth. The clouds that change back and forth also attract the attention of others, scattered around, enjoying the beauty of the dusk. Arthur's gaze swept over one by one, and finally landed on Mei Yi. The position he stood in a relatively remote position compared to the others, standing tall and straight, with an indescribable tenderness in his eyes. What's wrong Mei Yi, are you standing here alone enjoying the silence? Feeling the familiar embrace surrounding her, the corners of Mei Yi's calm mouth hooked up a smile. He was about to turn around, but was stopped by Arthur. Don't move, that's fine. The voice in her ears made Mei nod and look ahead. It's just that I haven't been quietly waiting for a long time, and I feel a little nostalgic. Looking at the scenery whizzing in front of her, Mei Yi's gaze changed slightly. Captain, this is in the lounge, can you control it a little? Mei Yi bit her lip and whispered. It's not something that my brain can control. There was some grievance in Arthur's tone. And, Mei Yi is so charming, it's all your fault. What, Captain, don't put the blame on someone else. Mei Yi muttered a little dissatisfied. The clothes Mei Yi is wearing today are really beautiful. What Captain, should you? Mei Yi's eyes widened slowly. Anyway, where did Mei and the Captain go? Kiana suddenly noticed that Arthur and Mei were not around, and couldn't help but glance around. Huh, what are you doing against the wall? Immediately Kiana noticed that Mei Yi's hands had become transparent, and the walls of Hyperion, with her head down, seemed to be looking at something. Hearing Kiana's voice, Mei Yi quickly raised her head and took 2 deep breaths, trying to calm her tone as much as possible. No, it's okay Kiana, you're standing there obediently. Mei Yi bit her lip tightly after speaking, revealing a forced smile. Oh. Kiana nodded a little inexplicably, her gaze sweeping around again. Strange, where did the Captain go? Did he go back to his room to sleep? Kiana muttered to herself, then took a step. That's another use for holographic projections. At a certain distance, it is possible to use surrounding items to form a visual deception. So Arthur, who is standing behind Mei Yi, makes perfect use of this effect. As long as you don't look in a straight line, you can't spot Arthur at all. Captain, Kiana is coming. The soft voice with some nervousness made Arthur smile. At that moment, the power was much greater than usual. The slightest change reflected May's mood at the moment, giving Arthur the idea of wanting to play a prank. But then he forcibly pressed down. Captain, where are you? Kiana turned slowly, getting closer and closer to May's direction. Captain. Mei Yi was extremely nervous at this moment, the muscles of her whole body were a little tense, and she slowly held the hand holding the wall. The twin forces of the outside and the inside pounded her brain. Just as Kiana was about to take 2 more steps and get closer, Mei Yi's heart instantly rose to her throat. Like a series of golden hoops tightly wound, and tighter, Arthur couldn't help but gasp. Suddenly, Kiana turned and walked in other directions. The crisis was lifted, and the heart that was hanging high fell all at once. Burst. The levees were struggling to withstand the impact of the sea, but the sky was full of winds, lightning, and thunder, and heavy downpours. The fragile levee could no longer be sustained, and it collapsed for thousands of miles. What's the sound? Although it was quick and short, it attracted everyone's attention. One by one, the puzzled eyes fell on Mei Yi. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 143. Mei Yi, what's wrong with you? Although the voice just now was very soft, it stopped abruptly as soon as it appeared. But in such a quiet environment, it was like thunder on the ground. Kiana's body, which had turned her head, turned back again. And Brnya and Sire, who were scattered all over the place, also cast curious glances. Rita looked at Mei Yi's somewhat flustered and reddened look, and her beautiful eyes carried the wisdom of seeing through everything. Captain, it's all your fault. Seeing everyone's gaze and Kiana's footsteps approaching, Mei felt hot on her cheeks. If you find out his embarrassment at the moment, you will definitely be laughed at for a long time. Thinking of this, Mei Yi not only glared at Arthur fiercely. That's because your endurance is not enough, Mei Yi, it seems that there is still a lack of exercise. This captain will urge you well in the future, but don't be lazy. Let's talk about it later, let's help Mei Yi get through this pass first. The high level of tension makes Mei Yi have no strength in her whole body at the moment, and she can't clean it up if she wants to. Hee, the scenery is so great now, I can't help but want to take pictures to commemorate it. Seeing that Arthur was still in the mood to tease her at this time, Mei Yi was about to cry in a hurry. The ship, long. Okay, leave it to me. Seeing that Mei Yi was really about to be bullied by him and cried, Arthur finally stopped joking, coughed lightly, took a step back, and appeared in front of Kiana. Huh, Captain, where did you come from? Seeing as if Arthur had appeared out of thin air, Kiana blinked her big eyes, full of doubt. What do you mean by popping up? Kiana, it's really rude at all. Arthur rolled his eyes and strode in front of Kiana. I will punish you for this. What? Before Kiana could react, she saw a big face gradually approaching. After more than 10 seconds, the somewhat confused vision gradually regained clarity. Captain, why are you so enthusiastic today? Kiana put her hands on her cheeks and writhed a little embarrassed. Don't you like it? Also, it's not. Was interrupted by Arthur like this, and even Kiana forgot the original purpose. Then let's do it again. Arthur blinked, but Kiana saw Rita and the others coming over, and quickly took a step back. Don't. The slightly pursed mouth is as tempting as a cherry. At this time, Mei Yi, who was hiding on the side, also walked out. The whole body is back to normal, at least not from the outside. Mei, what just happened? Seeing Mei Yi, Kiana remembered the purpose of her coming. I was bitten by a bug. After saying that, he glared at Arthur again. There's really no way to take their captain, in broad daylight, still in this lounge. But I have to say that this feeling is even more intense. As soon as such an idea came out, Mei Yi's heart couldn't help but tremble. What? Do we have bugs here? Hearing Mei's explanation, Kiana's eyes widened instantly. His eyes scanned back and forth on the ground, as if he was looking for the bugs that Mei Yi had said. Don't worry, Kiana, I've got rid of the bugs. Oh, I see, the captain is really powerful. Kiana nodded in admiration, and saw Mei Yi, who was a little anxious and uneasy on the side. Mei Yi, you're weird today, are you feeling unwell? Mei Yi's brows furrowed slightly, her legs were tightly together, and the muscles in her whole body seemed to be a little tense. This is the first time Kiana has seen such a situation. But, you might want to go to the bathroom. Mei Yi whispered, her face already flushed. After all, it was just a sloppy treatment, just a surface to clean up. I've been standing for a long time now, and it's slowly flowing out little by little. I'm afraid it won't be long before it is discovered. But running away in a panic will inevitably arouse suspicion, so I can only stand here by force. As I felt it ticking down, time seemed to slow down a lot. So you just went to the bathroom, do you need Kiana to accompany you? Kiana said and patted Mei on the back. This made Mei Yi's face change, and she could no longer stay where she was. I'll be right back. After hurriedly leaving a sentence, he turned around and left in stride. And when Kiana was about to follow, Arthur held it down with both hands. Captain, did you drown in water when you killed the bugs just now? There's a lot left here. But there were no bugs in there, as the captain had mentioned. Just before Mei Yi turned around and took 2 steps, Rita's words made her body instantly stiffen in place. Oops. The floor is completely untidy. Mei Yi held her head in annoyance. In the heart, a set of combination punches hit Arthur. Now the matter is about to be revealed. Ahem, this is what I accidentally spilled on the ground when I drank water earlier. Looking at Rita's smiling face, Arthur was sure she definitely meant it. I'm really afraid that the world will not be chaotic. Captain, according to Brynja's analysis, this knowing and saying it are 2 different things, Bronia. At this moment, Arthur blocked Brynja's mouth with an arrow. This is water, Brynja. Looking at Arthur's serious face, Brynja nodded. Yes, Captain, this is water. Brynja nodded earnestly. Getting the answer he wanted, Arthur nodded in satisfaction, snapped his fingers, and a small black hole appeared above him. Suck in all the traces. Seeing this scene, Mei Yi was really relieved, her stiff body resumed her actions, and she never stayed any more and disappeared in front of everyone. In the bathroom, the water mist was filled, and Mei Yi picked up the sprinkler head and cleaned it up. Sailed in the sky for 2 days. During this time, all the fragments of Sire's character were gathered in one resupply. SSS class, Nightmare Star Abyss. Trust each other, intimacy, and the power they exert has once again been raised to a higher level. And at the same time, Arthur also got the ability corresponding to it. Creation and withering. Destruction and rebirth. Maybe it's double happiness, and at this time, AI's voice of surprise came out. Captain, everyone, after AI-chan's unremitting efforts and hard work, we have finally found the island suspended in mid-air. While AI spoke, a picture appeared on the big screen in front of her. Surrounded by white clouds, an island is suspended in it. And this is really Arthur's departure destination. Sky Island. An island with a lot of gold buried on it. The next one should be Fuhua. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 144. Sky Island is located on the White Sea, 10,000 meters above the White Sea. Hyperion sailed above the skies in stealth. I didn't expect an island to be suspended in mid-air. Looking at the island below, everyone looked at it with amazement. Captain, how did this island hang in mid-air? Rita was also quite interested in this matter. Nature's magic. To be honest, Arthur didn't know either, and could only blame it on nature's work. How about AI-chan, have you detected the location of the gold? This time, Arthur's actions wanted to be a little more hidden. Come quietly, go quietly. Exploring. AI's voice relayed from the communicator. But Captain, isn't there a little interest in the two groups of men and horses fighting on this island from time to time? AI said that pictures appeared in front of him. There is a clear difference between the warring people on both sides. The clothes on the body can be clearly distinguished. To be honest, there's no interest. If they're willing to fight, let them play. Arthur's body sank deep into the couch. 400 years ago, Apayadu in the Air Sea was originally located as part of the island of Aya, Qinghai, and was carried by the ocean current to the Bibai Sea 400 years ago. 400 years ago, the North Sea navigator Vinbrand Rolando visited Gaia, when Gaia was still intact. Upon his return, Norland claimed to have discovered Sandora, the land of gold. When Norland led the king to Gaia again, the entire island was cut off and the land of gold was gone. Noland was executed for deception, and he refused to deny the existence of the land of gold until his death. After being carried by the currents to the White Sea, Apayadu was considered a sacred place by the people of the Sky Island, as it was the only island in the sea that had soil. The Sandias, descendants of the original inhabitants of Gaia Island, have waged a 400-year war against the Sky Islanders in order to reclaim their home and ring the golden bell again. And for hundreds of years, the fighting has been breaking out, and now they see only the tip of history. I feel like these people are so weak. Seeing the two groups of people fighting each other seemed to Kiana like children fighting. Hee, of course, Kiana, it's not an exaggeration to call your strength a god on this empty island. With the power to control space, for some people, it is indeed like a god. Really? I didn't expect Miss Ben to be so powerful, hee. Hearing Arthur's words, Kiana smirked. If you want to be a god here, you can do that. No, it's better to be with the captain. Hearing Arthur's words, Kiana shook her head again and again, hugged Arthur, and tilted her head with a faint smile on her face. Captain, there's been a trace of gold. At this moment, AI's voice came from the communicator. Very well, land carefully. The invisible Hyperion slowly spiraled down in mid-air, and finally landed safely on the ground. Through the screen in front of you, you can see that there is a place that looks like a monument outside. Captain, the air pressure outside is quite different from the inside of Hyperion, please be careful. Just as Arthur was about to walk out of the hatch, AI's voice rang out appropriately. Well, I know. Arthur nodded. This is at an altitude of 10,000 meters, and there is a big difference between the natural and normal air pressure. Be careful, especially you Kiana, don't be reckless at first. Arthur commanded the people around him. Well, why am I especially? Kiana pointed at herself, her face full of displeasure. Gone. The hatch opened, and Arthur walked out first. Because of the mental preparation in advance, such a small difference in air pressure can be said to be negligible for Arthur. At present, Arthur's physique is very strong. If it weren't strong, it wouldn't make Rita so energetic and delicate every day. Poof. An exclamation, followed by the sound of falling to the ground. This made Arthur turn his head speechlessly. Kiana, didn't you tell you just now, be careful, why did you fall so quickly? For Kiana's reckless character, Arthur felt hopeless. It feels, breathe, it's so difficult. Kiana struggled to her feet from the ground, her little face wrinkled. It's really thin air. Being in such an environment for a while, even Rita's face couldn't help but change a little. It's painful. Seal, how are you feeling? Seeing Seal with her right hand on her chest, looking like she was about to suffocate, Arthur rushed over with an arrow and reached out to hold her smaller body. It's a lot better, Captain, but it's a little uncomfortable at first. Seal looked up and smiled reluctantly at Arthur. Captain, you are biased, this treatment gap is too big. Seeing Arthur shushing at CIER, Kiana's mouth immediately pouted and hung up an oil bottle. Obviously, she didn't come over to comfort her when she fell just now. It's true, except for a little discomfort at first, it's much better now. May raised her right hand and clenched her fist. The influence of external factors has become less and less, and it is believed that it will be restored in a few minutes. Captain, CIER is all right. Standing up again, Seal nodded at Arthur, signaling that there was no need to worry. Well, it's fine, Brnya, how are you feeling? Seeing that Seal's face returned to normal, Arthur's eyes looked at Brnya on the side. Thank you, Captain, for your concern, Brnya is fine. Brnya shook her head slightly, signaling that she was okay. Hey, you must not ignore me. Seeing that Arthur ignored his words, Kiana expressed her anger. Not only Kiana is angry, but even her second personality is angry. It is unforgivable that anyone should ignore what she said. In a fit of rage, the space around him fluctuated slightly. And this fluctuation made everyone's eyes instantly focused. Kiana, calm down. Seeing the changes around Kiana, Arthur knew what was going to happen next. Humph. Kiana's whole body was suddenly enveloped in a cloud of light. Immediately, the long legs of 1.8 meters stepped out of the light. One step out and he came to Arthur. The light cleared, and Kiana, who had become the lawgiver of the void, pinched Arthur's chin with her right hand. The two looked at each other. Apologies. Faint words came out of Kiana's mouth, and her golden eyes gleamed dangerously. It's as if something terrible would happen to Arthur if he didn't do it. I'm sorry. Quickly Lesueau's response made Kiana not only slightly stunned. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return Captain. Chapter 145. Within a ruin. Huberly quietly stepped aside. Rita, May, Brnya, Seal, and Bella looked in the same direction. Arthur was half-seated on a large rock, and across from him, Kiana had taken the form of the lawgiver of the void, in an extremely indecent posture. Take a big step forward with your right leg raised, lean forward, and lift Arthur's chin with your right hand, so that the two pairs of eyes are only 2 fingers apart, watching closely. The golden eyes were churning with anger, looking at the surprised gaze in front of them. Apologies. Cold words came out of Kiana's mouth. If you use this posture and the roles are reversed, it will definitely be the plot of the domineering president and Cinderella. But alas, now Arthur looks like he is suffering. I'm sorry. Hearing Kiana's words, Arthur said immediately without much hesitation. The tone was decisive and clean, which made Kiana in front of her slightly stunned. This made Rita, who was standing on the sidelines, smile slightly. Their captain has also matured. I've already apologized, can you get up? Looking at Kiana, who was still a little stunned, Arthur reached out and tugged at her arm. Humph, don't think I'll forgive you if I apologize. The price of ignoring me needs to be repaid with the rest of your life. Kiana snorted coldly, slowly stood up, clasped her hands on her chest, and slowly levitated, 3 inches from the ground. Yes, yes, I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Arthur stood up and patted the dust off his body. So what's next? Just as Arthur was about to get down to business, Kiana next to him glanced around. The breath of destruction is really nostalgic. He muttered to himself, and his body turned into a streamer of light and flew into the distance. Kiana, where are you going? Mei Yi shouted. It's okay Mei, just let her go out and have fun alone. Arthur smiled and shook his head. The second personality finally came out for a trip, and I guess I want to find something to do. There was a moment of silence for the people on the empty island in his heart, and then he said, AI-chan, explore where the gold is, and we're going to take them with us in one pack. Okay Captain, AI-chan's detection function is activated. Inside the communicator on his arm, a light blue light curtain popped up. Gradually, small yellow dots appeared on the screen. Let's go, let's go. Arthur embarks on a journey to find gold, while Kiana on the other side also encounters the first wave of opponents. The weapons used by the original inhabitants of the Sky Island to fight against the Sandians are the shells, a specialty of the Sky Island. Various shellfish can exert different abilities. For example, the wind shell can blow a strong wind, the flame shell can burst into flames, and the shock shell can send out a shock wave. And shellfish can also be used in combination to play more effects. It's really an uninteresting fight. Kiana hovered above and watched the battle below, a bored look in her eyes. Flick your fingers. Bang bang. The two people below who were fighting fiercely suddenly felt a powerful force acting on them. The body involuntarily flew upside down, and it slammed into the tree before stopping. What happened? The two men struggled to get up from the ground, and the bones in their bodies felt as if they were about to fall apart. It's like a close-range attack from a platoon shell. Looked at each other in disbelief, and suddenly was stunned at the same time. The other party's experience was similar, and there was no platoon on his hand. So who defeated them? Such doubts flashed through his mind, and a cold voice came down from above. Human, who is the ruler of this island? Since she is here, there must be no one with a higher status than her. Except, of course, Arthur, who couldn't beat her. The ruler is, of course, our god, Lord Ganfor. The man from Angel Island said proudly. God. It's really funny. A smile tugged at the corners of Kiana's mouth, and her eyes scanned her surroundings, as if she had determined a target, fixed in a certain direction. Is the god you speak of there? The body turned into a streamer of light and disappeared in an instant. Did she go to Mistress Ganfor? The original inhabitants of Angel Island only reacted at this time, their faces changed, and they could no longer care about the Sandians on the opposite side, and quickly manipulated the cloud shells under their feet to rush out. Mistress Ganfor must be told as soon as possible that outsiders have entered. The Sandian stood stunned until there was no one in front of him. On the other side, Arthur and the others were able to find gold that had not yet been mined. The gold just stayed there quietly, like a girl waiting to be picked by her sweetheart. Faced with such a scenario, Arthur naturally accepted it unceremoniously. Reaching out and brushing it gently, pieces of gold disappeared. And the wealth in the system store is also increasing rapidly. Captain, look, it's really spectacular. May's voice came from a distance, and Arthur turned and walked over. A huge golden bell stands in front of you. The years have left no trace on it. An alluring glow all over the body. Captain, you can't bear to destroy such a delicate golden bell. Look at the color, how beautiful the yellow is. Perhaps in addition to diamonds, gold is also very attractive to women. It was the first time Arthur had seen Rita have such a side. Well, if you like, keep it and put it on our island to tell the time. Arthur smiled and reached over the face of the golden bell. A shocking force was transmitted from inside the bell to the outside. Feel like that. Arthur's gaze fell to the top of the steps. There is a text carved on the steps, which looks like it has just been carved up. Roger, have you already been to Sky Island? The golden bell contains a weapon named Poseidon, and the text below directs the history of the Sky Island to Ralph Drew. The last time I met Roger on Fishman Island, I was probably just coming down from the Sky Island. It is not known where Roger has been. I'm afraid that even if you don't conquer the Great Root, it's going to be soon. With a wave of his right hand, Arthur received the huge golden bell in front of him into the system warehouse. Afterwards, continue to explore the surroundings and get your hands on the gold. In the blink of an eye, half a day passed. However, at this moment, a violent spatial fluctuation caused Arthur to sigh. This Kiana, is it going to destroy the entire Sky Island with such a big burst of power? Let's go see Kiana, we should have had enough of it now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 146. Above a vast clearing, this is the largest battlefield between the natives of the Sky Island and the Sandians. As the current ruler of the Sky Island, Ganfor is also here. For nearly 500 years, the Sandians have not been able to reclaim their land, and this is still the case today. The whole situation of the war, the Sandians were losing and retreating, and a real rout was close at hand. The combat power of the two sides is comparable, but the difference in numbers is absolutely hard. Compared to the Sandians, the original inhabitants of the Sky Island have an absolute numerical advantage. Ganfor doesn't look that old now, standing on his mount and looking at the big picture. Gaia Island, washed up by an upwelling current 500 years ago, has long been regarded as a sacred place by the people of Sky Island because it is the only land on Sky Island. If you really have to count it, the people of Sky Island are the real robbers. Drove the people of the island away and took the land for himself. The Sandians are simply trying to reclaim their homeland. With the current situation, it won't be long before this war ends. Looking at the people fighting below, Ganfor sighed softly. He didn't want to see such a fight. But as the ruler of the Sky Island, everything must be done for the sake of his people. As during his tenure, he only drove the Sandians away. What's that? Suddenly, a streamer of light in the distance gradually approached, giving a look of doubt in Ganfor's eyes. Human, the sky is not where you should be. As soon as the faint voice came to my ears, I felt a strong pressure coming from above, and my body fell uncontrollably. Naturally, Ganfor's dynamics attract the attention of many. As long as the ruler of the Sky Island is defeated, the Sandians will naturally achieve the final victory. But after countless battles, even his body could not be brought close. However, just today, I saw that Ganfor, who was known as a god, fell from the sky like a meteor. This made everyone on the battlefield below not only stunned for a moment. I'm not mistaken, that Ganfor actually fell out of the sky. Who is she? Is it our reinforcements? In an instant, the Sandians became excited, and their fighting spirit was high. Shut up. A swarm of ants. The right arm stretched forward, and a crisp snap of fingers echoed in midair. Behind Kiana, black holes emerged one by one, gradually spreading outward, covering the entire sky. The bright sunlight was obscured by the black hole, and the shadows gradually spread over the earth, hanging over everyone's faces. Oh my God, what is this? Ominous breath. At this moment, the Aborigines of Angel Island and the Sandians looked up at the sky with wide eyes at the same time. The breath that came out of the black hole made them feel fear. Now, feel the true power of God. In the sky, inside the black hole, countless energies poured down. Boom boom. Streams of energy bombarded the earth, and huge explosions rang out one after another. Instantly engulfs everyone below. Ah! In the distance, Arthur and the others arrived just in time to see the scene. How did these people mess with Kiana? Mei looked at Kiana above, and the corners of her mouth twitched unnaturally. Maybe it's because the anger in my heart can't be vented on some people, so I let these people become scapegoats. Rita looked at Arthur with an inexplicable smile. Sister Kiana is amazing. Of course, the Queen is the best. Hearing Seal compliment Kiana, Bella looked up proudly. Kiana, that's almost enough. If you keep going, these people will be wiped out by you. Seeing that the pouring energy still had no intention of stopping, Arthur had to speak. After all, I have obtained so much gold on the empty island, and I feel a little embarrassed to kill all the people on the island. Humph. Kiana snorted coldly, looking reluctant, but the movements of her subordinates stopped. The black hole behind it gradually shrunk and finally disappeared into the sky. The sun shone on the earth again, so that those who still had a breath of breath never felt so warm. It's as if the people of this island call you a god. Kiana's body slowly levitated and landed in front of Ganfor, struggling to her feet, her golden pupils tinged with teasing. It's just an honorific title. At this time, the armor on Ganfor's body was in tatters, and the impact of the explosion had severely injured him. You can't use this honorific title anymore in the future, do you understand? High up and commanding, Ganfor nodded at once. In the face of such a powerful existence that can easily destroy them, there is no right to refuse. Good. Kiana nodded in satisfaction and slowly floated back to Arthur. You're a little too much if it's a prank. Glanced at the desolation of the battlefield in front of him. Kiana's wave of map cannons was almost 9 out of 9. After this loss, I am afraid that neither the Sandians nor the people of the Sky Island will be able to conduct a second engagement in a short time. Hearing Arthur's words, Ganfor really wanted to cry without tears. Mischief. They really can't afford to play a prank. Humph, pay attention to the way you speak. Facing Arthur, Kiana turned her head aside. Hey, you're kicking your nose in the face, aren't you? If you have the ability, don't run, I'll clean you up in a while. Seeing a few people next to him covering their mouths and chuckling, Arthur said viciously to the back of Kiana's head. Well, I'm sorry, it has had some impact on your fight. Don't worry, if you want to fight, you can continue, we'll leave right away. When Ganfor heard Arthur's apologetic words, he smiled more ugly than crying. It's okay, it's all our fault. Although he has no idea where he provoked such a powerful person, it seems that obediently admitting his mistake is the clearest choice. Well, as compensation, I'll tell you one piece of news. Arthur pondered for a moment, looked at Ganfor in front of him and continued. In the future, there may be a powerful person who will appear on the Sky Island, and you will not be able to resist in the face of his strength, so just wait patiently, and someone will save you from fire and water. As Arthur said, the powerful man was naturally Anilu. Counting the time, Anilu should still be a little guy now. For Anilu, Arthur didn't have much of an idea. Can the power of manipulating thunder and lightning be stronger than Maze? Yes, I remember. Ganfor nodded. The purpose of coming to Sky Island has been achieved, and Arthur naturally will not stay for long. And this time, Kiana in the form of a lawyer seems to have a lot of backbone, and she has no intention of running away until now. Arthur was thinking about how to punish her. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 147. The island that Arthur had founded, on the surface, had always been managed by Doflamingo. In fact, the real manager is AI. Most of what happens on the island will be handled by the Titans, and Doflamingo will still manage the export trade. Dover, many traces of naval activity have been found on the island today. Torrible walked in slowly through the door. The Navy did not hide its whereabouts, and appeared on the island in such a generous manner. Recently, the activities of the Navy have become more and more frequent, and it seems that something is being planned. Diamante's brows were also furrowed. The Navy's unusual actions brought an unusual signal, a sense of impending a storm. Leave them alone, just eyes and ears. Dofran sat in his chair, his brow furrowed, as if he was thinking about something. Dover, is there something bothering you? Has always been by Doflamingo's side, and he can naturally grasp the changes in his mind. Just yesterday, the Navy headquarters got in touch with me and said what was going on for me to join His Majesty's 7 Marshalseas. Doflamingo was still quite surprised when he heard the news. The main thing is that the person who called him was the current Admiral Steele. The power held by the 7 Marshalseas under the King is also very detailed. What about your answer, so much Defoe? Diamante and Torrible glanced at each other and at Doflamingo. Doflamingo's answer determined their future direction. If we don't realize that Arthur has joined the 7 Marshalseas of His Majesty before, it will be of great benefit to us. But now, the privilege of His Majesty's 7 Marshalseas is dispensable to us. Doflamingo shook his head. The privilege of His Majesty's 7 Marshalseas is no longer too tempting for him now. Frowning and thinking for a moment, Doflamingo raised his arm. Arthur can be reached by the communicator above. Now he hadn't replied to Cyborg and wanted to hear Arthur's opinion. On the other side, in the sky, Hyperion flew slowly. Captain, what have you been looking at since you left Sky Island? Mei Yi walked over with some snacks and saw Arthur sitting on the couch looking intently at the screen in front of him. This behavior has been going on for quite some time. And in the distance, Kiana sat there alone, still maintaining the posture of a lawyer, drinking to herself. Kiana, in the form of a lawyer, also surrounded Arthur all the time, shouting one captain after another. The atmosphere in Hyperion was a little cold. Seeing the small snack brought by Mei Yi, Arthur picked one up and threw it into his mouth. I'm looking for a punishment prop, and this time I must make her completely surrender. Arthur said and glanced at Kiana faintly, the meaning of which was self-evident. Captain, you're not a child anymore, and now Kiana is just unforgiving. Mei Yi shook her head speechlessly. That's exactly what happened. Seeing Arthur staring intently at the screen in front of him again, Mei Yi sighed helplessly. Did he, Captain? Doflamingo has sent a request for communication. In the communicator, AI's words made Arthur slightly stunned. In general, Doflamingo wouldn't contact him. Since you contacted him, something very serious must have happened. And it can also be ruled out that there are major incidents on the island. If something big happens, AI will also tell him as soon as possible. Turning on the communicator, a light curtain ejected, revealing Doflamingo's face. What's going on? Doflamingo. Seeing Doflamingo, Arthur asked directly. Yesterday, Admiral Steele Bonekong invited me to join His Majesty's 7 Marshalseas, and I came to ask for your opinion. If we join the 7 Marshalseas of His Majesty, will it do us any good or something? Doflamingo also knew that Arthur didn't like, so he went straight to the point and explained the reason for the situation. Inviting you to join His Majesty's 7 Marshalseas. Arthur rubbed his chin with his right hand, thinking for a moment. If you want to ask me, you can join the 7 Marshalseas under the King or not. However, joining the 7 Marshalseas will bring you closer to the center of power. After all, with the privileges given by the government, it is time for the identity of the Doflamingo Draconians to come into play. Okay, I see. Doflamingo nodded, then turned off the communicator. In the room on the island, Doflamingo smiled at the corner of his mouth and took out the phone bug. Marshal Kong, after a day of reflection, I will now give you a definite reply. Join the matter of the 7 Marshalseas of His Majesty. I agreed. A faint voice echoed through the room, proving that Doflamingo was officially entering politics. That's what Arthur wanted. And within Hyperion. Captain, what do you mean by the 7 Marshalseas? 11ER touched her lips with her index finger and tilted her head slightly, with a look of doubt in her eyes. It's a department set up by a world government. Then Arthur gave a brief introduction. Oh, I see. Seal nodded as if she didn't understand. Arthur's gaze quickly swept over the goods in front of him, and when he saw one of the items, his gaze froze, and he immediately stopped what he was doing. Glanced at the effect above, and a demonic smile appeared on his face, which made 11er on the side have a frightened look on his face. Rising from the couch, Arthur came to Kiana. "Don't let the captain bully the queen." Bella quickly stood in front of Kiana from the side, her hands outstretched, looking like a child. "Although your loyalty is commendable, your strength cannot stop me." With a flick, Bella in front of him disappeared immediately. When it reappeared, it was already on top of the couch. Poof. Dropped. "What's the matter?" Looking at Arthur in front of her, Kiana still had a haughty posture. "How about we play a game?" Arthur flipped his right hand as he spoke, and a small bottle appeared in his hand. "Boring." Kiana gave Arthur a blank look, and when she picked up the juice in front of her again, she wanted to drink it. Arthur dropped a drop into it with lightning speed. The raised hand immediately stopped in mid-air. Looking at Kiana's passing gaze, Arthur gave a defiant look. "What? Don't you dare to drink if you put something in." "Humph, you think I'm going to be scared?" Kiana's eyes narrowed slightly, and her golden eyes had a sharp gaze. "Then you should drink it up." The method of agitation is 100 trials and tried and true for the current Kiana. In Arthur's gaze, he drank the juice directly from the quilt. "I drank it, and it turned out that nothing happened." Kiana raised her hands to indicate that she was not doing anything at all. "The only thing you can do is now." Arthur waited, just a few seconds. Kiana's expression with a faint smile suddenly became a little unnatural. "Do you feel the breeze blowing very strongly now?" Even with the slightest movement, the friction of the clothes is particularly noticeable. Seeing Kiana's expression, Arthur knew that the effects of the medicine had taken off. "What did you make me drink?" Kiana's eyes were filled with anger, and a bad premonition suddenly came to her heart. "It's nothing, it's just doubling your body's sensitivity. And it can be super doubled," Arthur said as he slowly approached Kiana, like a jackal approaching a weak and helpless little sheep step by step. "The next time is for the two of us." Chapter 142 is currently banned, and it seems that it can't be released today. So this audit is really too grinding, and it hasn't been reviewed for half a day. This incident once again reminds us that it is best not to raise what you want to see firsthand. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 148. In the Hubley and break room, Kiana slowly rose from her stool. His brow was only furrowed, and his little face was full of seriousness. "The gentle breeze that blew around me cut through the skin, but there was a slight pain. If it's just one place, it's not fearful, the key is to cover the whole body." The action of standing up just now made the originally soft clothes seem to become a little tougher. "How's it going?" "But I picked it for you, Kiana." Seeing Kiana's hand on the table slowly holding, Arthur walked over with a smile on his lips. "If I run away now, I won't laugh at you, lawyer." Arthur looked at the golden eyes that were close at hand, and once again used the agitation method. "It's not fun to run away halfway through. Do you think you can bring me to my knees by using such a small trick?" There was a sharp edge in his golden eyes. "If that's all there is, of course not, but it has another effect. It's time to start counting the time." It seemed that Arthur had a confident look, and the confusion in Kiana's eyes was slowly replaced by astonishment. "You? What did it do to me?" An unnatural flush appeared on Kiana's fair cheeks. The strength of her body was being withdrawn at all, making her stand a little unstable. Kiana, who was aware of this scene, finally showed a trace of panic in her eyes. "It's one thing to fight, but it's another thing if you can't even resist and are at the mercy of others." "Nothing, just a little bit of brittleness." The two effects stack on top of each other, but they have a super double effect. Arthur's faint words made a trace of anger rise in Kiana's eyes. Despicable, to use such a despicable means. The feeling of weakness made Kiana hold the table with both hands, and her clenched fists were used to resist the rising desire in her heart. So it's a game with you. A little game to see how long your willpower can last. If you can't hold on, feel free to call me, and I'm happy to help with the requests of beautiful women. Arthur clasped his hands on his chest, looking like he was watching a play. Humph, stop dreaming. From the change in Kiana's expression, Arthur could tell that her patience was very reluctant. I didn't expect to be so hard-mouthed. Just as Arthur was about to say something, Kiana directly dodged into the imaginary space. AHH. Arthur took a step and disappeared in place. In the Hubley and break room, the rest of the people looked at each other. Captain, this is... Watching the two disappear one after the other, Cier muttered. Sister Brynja, where did the captain and Kiana go? 11er, who was still a little confused, turned her head to look at Brynja next to her. Within the imaginary space. Depending on the captain's time, plus the time it takes to hunt down Kiana and do some preparations, it will take about 5 hours. Based on her previous experience, Brynja quickly came to a conclusion. I'm afraid it's more than 5 hours. Rita shook her head and continued. Looking at the captain's attitude this time, it seems that he wants to completely succumb to Kiana's second personality. It will take a long time. Although there is the aid of medicine, the consciousness of the lawyer should not be underestimated. Rita said, her eyes glinting with interest. Drugs that can increase the sensitivity of the body seem to be worth trying. Isn't that a bit too much? Mei Yi is still a little worried. Hee, don't worry. Kiana's body has long been familiar with the captain, and it is only the consciousness of the lawyer who resists. And it's just lip service. Rita is absolutely confident in this. Otherwise, for such a long time, the lawyer's personality would have come out to make trouble. Every time she is with the captain, she may enjoy it very much. Anyway, let's make something delicious first, and come back to comfort Kiana. Mei said as she walked towards the kitchen. Ai-chan, let Hyperion stay in place for the time being, waiting for the captain to come back. Ai-chan received. Slowly, Hyperion stopped in the white clouds. And at the same time, in the imaginary space, countless huge stones are suspended, forming a natural and excellent hiding spot. Kiana, don't hide, come out quickly. In the midst of the rubble, a figure appeared, a faint voice echoing around it, but no response was received. You really haven't learned how to behave, Kiana. It only takes some time to find you in countless rooms. Arthur naturally had a very easy way to find Kiana, but he didn't want to do that. Sometimes, it's the process that's worth enjoying. Arthur's figure wanders among the rubble, strolling leisurely, as if traveling. And just behind a large rock not far away, Kiana clenched her fists, and her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Damn it, you can't get caught. With her current posture, if Arthur sees her, she may suffer some kind of humiliation. Seeing Arthur getting closer, he tried to shift his position, but he turned around and accidentally kicked a piece of gravel. Oops. Arthur's figure as he was walking flashed and came to the big rock. And yet it was empty. His gaze swept over, and he lowered his head, and there were few marks on the stone. Squatting down, dipping his fingers a little and rubbing them, Arthur's mouth curled into a smile. It's getting interesting, Kiana. The game of cat and mouse continues, however, at this moment, Kiana's condition can compare to Arthur's patience. What's more, at a very early stage, Arthur had already locked on Kiana's location. Deliberately dangling around her, increasing her tension. Behind another large rock, Kiana clutched her chest and gasped softly. After such a long time, she only felt a dizziness in her head, and the feeling of emptiness almost swallowed her reason. The right hand trembled and put it down and quickly raised it, holding it tightly. No, absolutely not. The lawyer's willpower is indeed strong, and if he were an ordinary person, he would definitely not be able to do it at this time. He took a deep breath and poked his little head out to check Arthur's location. What about people? However, his eyes swept around, but he did not find a single figure. Are you looking for me? Kiana. A soft voice rang in her ears, and Kiana's brain thundered. The desire that had been suppressed to the limit almost exploded at this moment. However, at the last moment, she still insisted on it. Instead of looking back, he leaned forward sharply to distance himself. But since Arthur has already appeared, how can he let her escape? Immediately, Kiana felt a force pull her back. Kiana, who knew that she couldn't escape, waved her right hand, and the spear of Akong stabbed straight towards Arthur. Hee, when you can use all your strength, such an attack won't work, let alone now. There is no power left. Catching the spear of Yakin with ease, Kiana suddenly felt a whirlwind of the heavens. It has been set on top of a huge rock. Damn, let me go. Kiana struggled hard, but her weak struggle seemed very weak. I've been caught now, don't worry, I won't do anything to you until you ask me. Arthur looked at Kiana with a panicked look on his face. I will never ask you. Kiana tilted her head to the side, but her rapidly heaving chest signaled his inner turmoil. Kiana's patience has reached its limit. Now that Arthur is so close to it, this body instinctively wants to respond. Add to that the propulsion of drugs. It is like a volcano that has been suppressed for tens of thousands of years, faintly erupting. The gaze cast was like a pair of invisible hands, and Kiana could really perceive it. Oh, by the way, there's no one around now, so let's enjoy a specially prepared movie together. Arthur then turned on the communicator, and a light curtain ejected. In the picture, a man and a woman are doing sacred work. This is like adding fuel to the fire. Immediately, turn it off. Kiana raised her head violently, her eyes were filled with mist, and her golden pupils were no longer as sharp as before. I didn't expect you to wear such a beautiful short skirt like Mei. What are you going to do? It's nothing, help ease your pain, is this it? Arthur said as he pressed on the area of Kiana's wound. Kiana's eyes widened instantly, and her brain roared. It looks ready. Arthur said as he took out the powder and slowly and carefully applied it to the injured area. Very slowly, little by little, feeling the surroundings, carefully not letting go of even the slightest gap. All of a sudden, Kiana was sinned. It's as if thousands of ants are biting at her body, slowly encroaching. It's better to kill her directly. But begging Arthur for mercy is absolutely impossible. The two of them were at a stalemate. After 3 hours, Kiana finally spoke. The ship, Captain. A soft voice came out of Kiana's mouth, and by this time she was on the verge of collapse. What? Although the process of applying the medicine is difficult, Arthur must not be soft. Please, beg, you. The 3 words of weakness are like the loudest voices. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 149. In the imaginary space, after more than an hour, the battle continued. From the very beginning, Arthur has always had the upper hand, and Kiana can only defend passively. There was no way to do that, and the weakening of her strength made it impossible for her to even fight back effectively. Can only hold on to withstand Arthur's attacks again and again. In more than an hour, Kiana had already shown defeat 4 times. The water rippled underneath him, gradually spreading outward. Kiana, is that all you have to do? I'm still early. Arthur held a spear in his hand, his eyes stared, and he stretched forward, and a little spark of gunfire flashed. Kiana's body trembled and retreated again and again. The only thing you can be proud of is now, and when I regain my strength, I'll let you know how good I am. As time passed, Kiana had felt her strength gradually returning. I believe that as long as a period of time passes, all the lost power can be restored. Maybe that's how powerful women are. Resilience and endurance are much stronger. If you want to regain your strength, don't dream. See me break it all up before you regain your strength. Eat me with one move, continuous thrusting. Eat me one more trick, Changhong through the sun. The tip of the gun shook continuously, swinging forward at a rate of dozens of times per second. Then, with a sharp retraction, all the power converged, several times stronger than before, enough to pierce the power through the space and stab forward. Above the tip of the gun, a little flame filled the air. Burst. A trail of blood flowed from Kiana's body. "Kiana, you're hurt." Seeing this scene, Arthur was shocked. It stands to reason that it shouldn't, and it's not the first time to fight. How can this happen? Seeing the pain on Kiana's face, Arthur was very distressed and stopped moving. Stepped forward and held Kiana's upper body. "I'm sorry, Kiana, my attack was a little too strong." Arthur also blamed himself for getting carried away. "Please, Captain, go on." Such a gentle voice made Arthur slightly stunned. Looking down, Kiana bit her lip, her eyes still golden. "Could it be that what you just heard was a delusion? And you even call me Captain?" For a moment, Arthur stood there as if he had discovered a new world. The ship, long. After a while, it was found that Arthur still did not move. Kiana couldn't help but look up in confusion. Seeing Arthur, who looked like a sculpture, his brows couldn't help frowning. In this moment, turn reactive into proactive. A spinning black hole appears, sucking Arthur's spear into it. "Captain, if you don't have a weapon, you might as well take it this time." A smile tugged at the corners of Kiana's mouth. It seemed to be the first time I had seen Kiana smile in such a form. The tenderness in her eyes is as if she were the real Kiana. There were a lot of surprises today. Seeing that Kiana seemed to have nothing to do, the worry on Arthur's face gradually disappeared, and he said with a hint of a smile, "My mind is connected to my weapons. Now that you swallow my weapon, you're in for a bad luck, Kiana." Arthur's mind moved as he spoke, and the still spear immediately let out a trembling sound. It can be clearly seen that the huge force causes ripples on the surface of the black hole. "I didn't expect you to be so strong after all this time, Captain." Kiana let out an exclamation, and the power of recovery immediately condensed. "You're not bad, I didn't expect to secretly gather such power." Seeing that Kiana still had a tendency to counterattack, Arthur was slightly surprised. He, Captain, it's Kiana's time next." Taking advantage of Arthur's momentary distraction, Kiana immediately seized the opportunity to launch a counterattack. Whenever Arthur tried to break free of the black hole, Kiana would burst out with even greater power to imprison him. After coming and going, Arthur could only give up his weapon and use his bare hands. "Captain, look at the move." In Kiana's hands, a black hole the size of her head condensed and attacked Arthur. Between the two fighting, the figure flew up and down. "Kiana, do you want to treat your wounds?" Seeing the blood that Kiana showed from time to time, Arthur asked with some concern. "It's all right, Captain, it's just a minor injury." Kiana shook her head, then looked at Arthur with some amusement. Could it be that the captain is no longer good and wants to admit defeat and surrender? If the captain wants to throw in the towel, Kiana is acceptable. Seeing that Kiana looked down on him, Arthur said viciously, "Don't cry for a while." Originally, Kiana's strength was much weaker than Arthur's. Now, once Arthur gets serious, Kiana immediately falls into the upper hand. In this imaginary space, there was no concept of time at all, and it was not until Kiana's weak plea for mercy that it gradually subsided. And at the same time, within the Hyperion. "Captain, why haven't they come back yet?" Mei Yi walked back and forth in a little anxious. Calculating the time, more than 10 hours have passed. "Captain, they're not going to get lost, are they?" The idea popped into his head, and he was thrown out by Mei Yi again. How could it be lost? He, so it's a little early to cook, and it's not too late to cook it when the captain comes back. Rita on the side seemed to have expected it, with a faint smile on her face. It looks like the captain's information is going to be updated again. Brynja looked at the big screen in front of her and paused. And 11ER sat on the sofa very obediently and waited quietly. Bella, on the other hand, was a little worried about the Queen's comfort. He looked a little anxious. At this moment, the space next to it rippled with layers. Arthur walked out of it with Kiana in his arms. "Captain." Seeing Arthur appear, Mei Yi suddenly rushed over with an arrow. "Kiana, what's wrong?" In her arms, Kiana closed her eyes and seemed to be asleep. "Well, I'm a little tired, plus I'm weak, so I'm in a coma and it's good to rest for a while," Arthur said and gently carried Kiana to the couch. "Queens." Seeing Kiana fall into a coma, Bella looked distressed. "Looks like Captain's ship, you're making a lot of noise." Rita stood to the side, her chin in her right hand, her eyes filled with meaning. "It's a bit overdone." Arthur brushed Kiana's slightly wrinkled face. "Captain." Mei Yi walked over with a glass of water. "Thank you, Mei. Do you have anything to eat? I'm a little hungry." Arthur patted his stomach, a look of embarrassment on his face. "Yes, it's done, but now it's time to warm up, right away." For Arthur's request, Mei Yi will always do her best to meet it. "Captain, water." Kiana's somewhat weak voice came. "Kiana, are you awake?" He placed the glass of water in his hand to Kiana's mouth. Kiana, who had her eyes closed, slowly drank all the water and slowly opened her eyes. There was a hint of tiredness in his blue eyes. It seems that the second personality has receded. "Captain, Kiana is tired, her whole body aches, and it looks like it's cracked," Kiana said and slowly pursed her mouth, her eyes filled with mist. "Come, eat this, it'll be fine soon." Arthur buys a medicine from the store to heal his body and heal his wounds. "It's great, this warm feeling. I felt like my whole body was gradually regaining my strength." After taking the elixir, Kiana's eyes burst into a light of surprise. "Captain, Kiana, the meal is ready." Hearing Mei Yi's words, Kiana felt the protest that her stomach had been emitting. In an instant, he bounced off the sofa and rushed to the dining table. "Be careful." Seeing Kiana's speed at the moment, it seems that she has recovered as before. Arthur was relieved. It was not in vain that he spent tens of millions to buy a pill. Although the flowers are good, the monthly pass is more motivating, although it is all data, but the monthly pass will display a red prompt in the background. It's pleasing to the eye. However, I don't force it, and I am very grateful that everyone can support a full booking. At present, there are fewer and fewer new additions, and the skipping is also very serious, alas. Cardiac congestion. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 150. Within the Navy headquarters. The news he had just gotten made Steelbone's face change dramatically. "What did you say?" Hearing a report from a Navy, Cyborg instantly stood up from his seat. The Draconians are known as the nobles of the world, and their activities have always been around the Chambord Islands. Of course, there are times to leave. You will only leave if you go on a tour of the field. But there must be people around to protect them in all directions. This time, their navy did not receive the order, but their subordinates reported that they had received the news that the Draconians were leaving the Chambord Islands. Is there any deep meaning in this? Yes, Marshal Sara, just this morning, the Draconians left the Chambord Islands, and the direction should be Aichan Island. Aichan Island, on the first day the island opened, Ai said a word. This kind of thing even Arthur was a little unexpected. I thought it was just a joke about Ai, but I didn't expect it. Now it's officially synonymous with that island. Damn, these unreassuring guys. Cyborg slammed his fist into the table in front of him, with an angry look on his face. Now that the Arthur pirates have not come out to take the initiative to find trouble, they should burn incense and worship the Buddha, not to mention that Doflamingo promised to join the 7 Marshalseas of His Majesty. After that, they slowly have a good relationship with the Arthur pirates, and their navy will be reduced by a big hidden danger. Everything is moving in a good direction. And at this time, the celestial dragon people actually appeared in the sky. If there was any conflict between the Draconians and the Arthur pirates at this time, it would be the worst situation. Now, the situation has reached the point where there is no time to wait, and I immediately took out the phone bug. Warring States General, come over immediately. Soon, Sengoku walked in. Marshal Kong, what do you command? Under normal circumstances, Ganga Kong would not call him. Since he came here, there must have been a major incident. The Draconians have left the Chambord Islands, and I want you to immediately lead Lieutenant General Polusalino, Lieutenant General Sakaski, and Lieutenant General Kuzan to protect them. If you try as much as you can, prevent them from doing anything stupid to come out. Cyborg knew that his request was a bit excessive. Although the Draconians are all a bunch of waste, they have a lot of power. Not even he, the Marshal, let alone anyone else. Yes. Sengoku didn't ask why, nodded and immediately went into action. AHH. The yellow ape looked reluctant to get the news. Is it the job of guarding the Draconians? The pheasant's brow furrowed. The red dog on the side didn't say anything. The 3 of them carried a number of navies and immediately followed Sengoku on a warship and set off. At the same time, on the sea, a sailing ship with the symbol of the world government is moving slowly. On the deck, the Saint of Riswald was dressed in the costume of the Draconians and wore a bubble on his head. And beneath him was a tall slave. This slave was also a captain who roamed the seas, but was captured and auctioned. The slave wore a collar around his neck, and his long hair was draped so that it was impossible to see his face. There was a chain on the collar that spread upwards to the hands of Riswald Saint. When will we get to that island? As soon as Riswald's words fell, someone next to him immediately stood up. Lord Riswald, at our current speed, it will take 2 days. What? How long? Riswald frowned. I left the Chambord Islands because I wanted to see the amazing islands that everyone said. Nowadays, almost everything in the palace of the Holy Shrine of Riswald originates from the island of Aichan. Small dessert snacks, big bedside furniture. Riswald had never imagined before that a carpet could be so soft and that a bed could have so many functions. Those snacks can make people addicted one after the other. And all of these things have the same label. In addition, what worries Riswald the most are those legendary Titan mechs. All of them are tall and mighty, and if they can get one, they will be much more majestic than these slaves under him. Although I have only seen some images, I have already loved Riswald Saint. Pick up the speed immediately, I'm going to be there in a day. Riswald Saint shouted in a commanding tone. Yes, the subordinates immediately adjusted. This time, it was naturally their celestial dragon's personal guards who followed the Riswald Saint out. CP9A Euro. The world government is directly under the secret supreme spy agency. It is known as the strongest shield of the Draconians. Today, the CP9 organization has just changed its members, and its leader is named Spondum. He used to be the governor of CP5 and was the son of former CP9 chief Spandane, and inherited his father Spandane's position as the chief of CP9 in the world government. And on the warship on the other side. It was only at this time that the Yellow Ape and the others knew the purpose of summoning them urgently this time. What? I thought it was just an ordinary escort mission, but it turned out to be. When he first heard what the destination of the celestial dragon people was, the Yellow Ape suddenly became calm. He really should have asked before he got on this thief ship. It's impossible to return these days. The Draconians have never left the Chambord Islands. What happened this time? The pheasant's brow was also slightly wrinkled. This kind of initiative to provoke the Arthur pirates is really stupid. Warring States General, are you ready for battle? Akainu's question made everyone's eyes look at Sengoku. This determines their next move. If it really comes. Last resort. Sengoku's words are not explained, but the meaning is already very obvious. If it really comes to the last resort, it is necessary to protect the safety of the Draconians, and when the time comes, it is inevitable to clash with the Arthur pirates. Alas, it's really going to be desperate again. Is the world government crazy? The Yellow Ape rubbed his head with a headache. Yes, is the world government crazy? This is the question that pops into most people's minds. They believe that the actions of the Draconians must have been tacitly approved by the world government. However, they have no right to interfere in this kind of thing, and they can only resign themselves to fate when the time comes, hoping that things will not develop to the worst level. Well, since that's the case, let's speed things up.